March 2013, and Jorge Mario Bergoglio stood on the balcony of St. Peter's in Rome and said a simple Buonasera.
Fratelli e sorelle, grazie tante dell'accoglienza.
It was the start of a very different pontificate from his predecessor Benedict, who'd retired from his onerous duties. The former Archbishop of Buenos Aires was the first pope to take the name of Francis, the saint of the poor and of nature. He was, though, to usher in a time of richer relations with his worldwide congregation, both in style and substance. And that soon became evident as he made his presence in the Vatican more accessible. Gone were the grand papal apartments. He moved to the Casa Santa Marta to live simply with others. When he visited the headquarters of the EU, he did so in a battered car, and a more informal approach echoed the approach of John Paul II. The carnival is over, he declared, referring to the Vatican's cliques and factions. There was instead a whirling circus of high-profile media appearances. The Pope wanted to be part of the modern world. He was clearly spontaneous and open. When asked about homosexuality, he answered, "Who am I to judge?" But did indeed pass judgment publicly on those who had been abused.
Faccio un sentito appello per la lotta a tutto campo contro gli abusi di minori nel campo sessuale come in altri campi, da parte di tutte le autorità e delle singole persone, perché si tratta di crimini abominevoli che vanno cancellati dalla faccia della terra.
This was one of his earliest challenges, how to deal with the spectre of child abuse that had hung over the Catholic Church. His papacy became an opportunity to end decades of evasion and cover-ups. But traditionalists were fearful of his modernizing tendencies, affirming in their view, when he bans the Latin Mass, a form of liturgy popular with conservative Catholics.
Buon pranzo e arrivederci.
He went on to speak one then of Muslims as brothers, and was vocal in his support of migrants, even taking in some families to live in the Vatican itself. He also pitted himself against African Orthodox bishops on the issue of homosexuality, where Pope Francis went further than his predecessors. Although he never actually blessed the concept of gay marriage, he appeared to observe the rule of love above the rule of law. In a documentary for the Disney Plus channel, he also reflected that priests should be merciful towards women seeking an abortion. As the world was gripped by the COVID crisis, Francis publicly encouraged all Catholics to get vaccinated. He called this a small gesture of love in poverty, at a time when skepticism was sweeping parts of the globe, but the death toll was rising. Especially across his home continent of South America, he felt the need for practical as well as spiritual leadership. With the invasion of Ukraine, the Vatican needed to deliver its own message in the war of words between Russia and the West.
Questa bandiera viene dalla guerra, proprio da quella città martoriata, Bucha.
Pope Francis denounced the wake of death and destruction, describing the war as a crime against God and humanity. He warned of a rising nuclear threat, echoing the views of millions when he said the world once more feels fear and anguish.
Per favore, non dimentichiamo di pregare per la martoriata Ucraina.
But despite this continued spiritual strength, his physical being was weakening. Knee problems left him using a wheelchair for long periods. In the summer of 2021, he underwent abdominal surgery, and then bronchitis hospitalized him in the spring of 2023. It was acknowledgement of his increasing frailty. He felt a malaise, he said, but I wasn't afraid. And he continued with his duties in all humility. He had admitted drafting a letter of resignation in the event of illness, making it impossible for him to continue with his duties as Benedict had done. But then, in a more recent interview, he reflected he had no real intention of taking that step. His ministry, he said, was his life.